Welcome to this edition of Rattling the Bars. I'm Mansa Musa, co-host with Eddie Conway. And as I always do, I try to update everyone on Eddie Conway, how Eddie Conway is doing. We ask that you continue to keep Eddie Conway in your prayers or whatever spiritual medium that you utilize as he goes through this process of recovery. We ask that you continue to support him and continue to support Rattling the Bars. Today, as always, we try to bring the news, the real news about the events and things going on, particularly in the criminal and justice system, the prison industrial complex, which is the new form of slavery, mass incarceration, which are chattel. And today we have an extraordinary story that we shouldn't even be revisiting, but we revisiting primarily because of the racism, fascism, and oppression that exists when it comes to people of color, poor people. Today we have Jorge Antonio Renaud, who is a prison advocate in Texas. And he'll tell you a little bit more about himself. Introduce yourself to the Rattling the Bars audience, Jorge.
Hey, man, so glad to be here. My name is Jorge Antonio Renaud. I'm the National Criminal Justice Director at a group called Latino Justice. And first I want to say the folks at Latino Justice want to send a message of solidarity to the individuals who are in cages anywhere. But specifically today to the individuals who are incarcerated in solitary confinement in Texas, who have lifted up their voices and banded together in a hunger strike to try to bring attention to the fact that the conditions in solitary confinement are so terrible. They have gotten so much worse with all the money being funneled out to Operation Lone Star here in Texas, to the Texas Department of Criminal Justice being willing to give funds to the apprehension and criminalization of migrants at the border, that they've ignored those even worse, even more so, the individuals who they deem and the public tends to believe are the worst in the worst, who are locked up in solitary confinement here in Texas.
All right, talk a little bit before we delve into, and which we will, before we delve into like the repression that the Texas prisoners are undergoing and the community in general that's suffering as a result of that. Talk a little bit about your organization so we can get an overview.
Yeah, thank you. Latino Justice just celebrated its 50th year. It's a group that specializes in class action litigation based on the model, of course, of the NAACP. That was the first one to do that and focus on ethnicity, right? Because of historic oppression against that ethnicity. Latino Justice originally started as a Puerto Rican Legal Defense and Education Fund, and now it tries to, through the legal arena, brings mass litigation to try to lift the burden of oppression and marginalization that has been placed on the Latino community. About 4 years ago, they got off into advocacy on the ground. They figured out that what they needed to do was find people who had been directly affected by the criminal legal system or detention and deportation. And they hired me, and we've got some folks all around the country who are doing this in different states, different regions, Florida, Texas, and the Northeast. And we look for people who've been affected, directly impacted by those systems, and we have them train other individuals, find and train other formerly incarcerated or detained individuals to try to change by using their stories, their direct experiences, right, to change the systems that have oppressed them and incarcerated them.
Okay, now, we recognize that a story came out saying that Texas prisoners are on hunger strike.
Right.
And mainstream media really glossed over it. It was alternative media that really set the table in terms of what was going on. Now, when I was researching this for this story, I'm looking at what the conditions. One, and you can address them as I put them out there. One, they saying that the information that's coming out is that the Texas prisoners went on strike, but specifically the ones that's housed in solitary confinement, and that they're on strike primarily because they're saying that the policies and procedures that are being utilized to keep them confined to solitary confinement for endless years with no redress or no way to get out is both draconian, arbitrary, and capricious,
Right.
if not racist.
Totally.
Address the what are the reasons that they're using for confining men and women as well? If
Yeah. Yeah,
you're
women as well.
in a
Yeah.
female prison, if you consider a threat,
Right.
what are they using to justify doing this particular practice that they're taking these men and women through?
Yeah, thanks for that question. The main reasons that TDCJ uses to put people in solitary
What's
confinement.
TDCJ?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
What's
TDCJ is the Texas Department of Criminal Justice.
Okay, come on.
That is the state prison here in Texas. You know,
Okay.
they use the same excuses that other states do, right? You know, hyperviolent against guards or other incarcerated individuals, attempt to escape, things of that nature, right? But by far the majority of people who are locked up in ADSEG, administrative segregation in TDCJ, are people who have been identified as members of a security threat group, right? And of course, a prison gang, right? And that was started.
Right.
That was policy in Texas since like the mid '80s. In the mid '80s, they had some gang wars going on after they took the building tenders out. They were fighting for control. Well, TDCJ couldn't control them, so they started putting them in ADSEG. And they are still using those reasons to put people in ADSEG, right? So the thing is that while they may say, well, these folks are really dangerous, they're the worst of the worst, you can have a 5-year sentence for nonviolent crime, not ever had committed a violent crime, be in the county jail, get confirmed as a member of a security threat group, you hit TDCJ and you immediately get put back in ADSEG, right? And of course, in Texas, the gangs that are considered the most dangerous are the Latino gangs, the Mexican mafia, the ethnic wars out of El Paso, those folks. So the majority of the people you have back there are Latinos. And and there are some people who've been there 20 or 30 years, right? And it's circular logic. It's like you're dangerous because you're in a gang, right? And the gang is dangerous because you're in it, even though you may have never committed any violence anywhere, right? But EDCG has decided these groups are dangerous. These people are too dangerous to be let out. We have no way to really protect ourselves from them. We don't know how to deal with that, so we're just going to put them in ADSEG, right? Throw these sham reviews at them and keep them back there.
And you know what? And go ahead.
No, I was going to say,
you made a good point. You made a good point though on how this particular attitude is nationwide, because when I was I did 48 years in the Maryland system.
Yeah.
When they first came out with it's a case called Helms versus Hewitt. That's the case that they came out with that validated admin said. That's the case that gave birth to admin said.
Yeah.
Saying that I think the case was like where we used to use the mandatory language, shall, will, and we're saying, and the court was saying, Supreme Court was saying that prisoners be combing through legislations and cases to find the mandatory language of, if you do this, that, and the third, you will be. So they came up with this perspective that, okay, admin say is legal, and they primarily came into existence because of a lot of the revolutionaries that was being locked up.
Right.
White radicals, again, Puerto Ricans, right? But it wasn't, and it was more designed around more of the political element.
Right.
But now, going back to your point, it's designed around, really, it's racist in its intent, because, as you just outlined, it's primarily isolating Latinos and saying that you're gonna be tagged from as soon as you come through the county jail.
Yeah.
You're gonna be tagged.
Right.
You're gonna be tagged. If you Latino, they gonna say, "Tell me who you with. You MS,
Exactly, who you with.
Mexican mafia." Give me, they're gonna go down the list, and if you say I'm none of them, they're gonna put one on you, so they can maintain their thing. But let's talk about what's being done in terms of trying to change these draconian policies and racist policies that's taking place right now against specifically Latino men and women, but in general, the population in general.
That's a good question. What is actually being done on the ground? You mentioned, policies. As you and I know, there's a huge gulf between policy and practice when it comes to prisons.
Come on.
A family member will call up and, my son says that this is being done, or my daughter says it's being done. I
Mhm.
say, well, ma'am, here's a policy. We don't do this by policy. But of course, you and I know Texas has
Right.
109 units and 109 prison units, right?
That's
I'm
right.
not sure how many of them right now have ADSEG cells, right? But I want to say a few dozen at the bare minimum. They have two
Right.
supermax units, right? Um,
Right.
and what's being done on one, I mean, and I don't know how it is in other states, but in Texas, the warden is God. And there are
Yeah.
fiefdoms, right? And what's
Yeah.
being done on the Estelle unit may be totally different 12 miles down the road on the Eastern unit, right? So the
Right.
thing is,
Right.
prison policy is meant, I hate to say it, but it's a sop to the public. Here's how we do things. We do things that's, governed by whatever accredited body is said to,
Yeah.
to come
Yeah.
and review us.
ACC.
But when they're gone, but when they're at the door and the ward's at the house, the sergeants on the wing are running the unit, are running
That's
that
right.
state. And if they don't like one guy, and if some dude has been rattling on the boards or trying to get his mail or something, he may not go out. He may not go out to rec that day. He may not get to shower for a week. He may not go out to rec for 2 weeks, right? And all
Right.
the complaints, Texas has no oversight, right? Texas has the ombudsman, which is under the Texas Board of Criminal Justice. Texas has a grievance system that's pretty well a joke, right? Also,
Mm.
the only oversight is the Texas Board of Criminal Justice, which is a group of usually law enforcement compliant individuals that are appointed by the governor. Same thing as a parole board, right? So there is
Right.
no
Right.
oversight. So what's being done is what you're doing. What's being done is what Brittany is doing, the woman who's from Wisconsin and somehow has taken a deep, abiding, true interest in the plight of incarcerated individuals everywhere, specifically in Texas.
Right.
So we try to bring attention to it, but I don't know if legally we can do anything to change the system. Now, 10 years ago, there was 9,000 people incarcerated back in Edsagan, Texas.
That's
So it's
right.
changed. It has changed. I don't know if that's because of the review process. If TDCJ went through and said this person has been there 2 years for kicking the bars or what, I don't know. But I do know that the 3,100 back there, right, have been. I want to say, I forget how many hundred of them. I want to say 500 or something have been back there over a decade. Those
Yeah. And
individuals
that's
are
good.
members
That's
of
not straight.
Security Threat Group. Pardon me.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
No,
I ain't mean to cut you. Go ahead.
I was going to say that the ones who have been there long term are almost exclusively individuals who have been back there confirmed as members of Security Threat Group who refuse to renounce, because renouncing, as you and I know, is going to mean tell us everything you know about the gangs, tell us
Uh,
everybody you know who's doing this, tell us all that.
right.
And it goes not only against whatever moral code these individuals have, but it may involve incriminating other individuals, and they're just not going to do that. But the thing is, they don't pose a threat.
Exactly.
That's the thing. They don't pose a threat.
Hey, look, and we're gonna talk about this right here because another good point you made. You have people locked up in security in
Right.
admin said or supermax
Right.
that you're saying that you didn't no matter what you if you're Latino and you're a prisoner and you're in the criminal injustice system and you're on the plantation, you're a gang.
Yeah.
That's just the nature of it. I don't care what you say. You can say whatever you want to say. If you're Latino, you're in a Texas prison, you're in California prison. When you come through the county jail, you're a gang.
Right.
You're a gang. So now you don't have no choice but to say, well, put me with somebody. Okay, but that aside, this is what I want to talk about. I want to talk about how if you saying that I'm a gang member, this is what you do. You say, based on your intel, I'm a gang member.
Right.
All right, and that right there. That's enough. Not that you got information that I stabbed nobody. Not that you got information that I killed nobody. Not that you got information that I'm extorting anybody. All the things that were going to making me a threat to the orderly disorder of your environment. You don't have no evidence to that. Talk about why they're so adamant about a person telling all the intricacies of a gang when all they want to do is say, "Well, I'm no longer a part of that." And why is that not sufficient enough? Talk about why they're so adamant about them devouring or divulging information that they might not even know.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
If you
Yeah.
got
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
opinion,
Yeah.
you got a
You
opinion.
kind of asked me to speak to a policy that I'm not So what I'm gonna have to do is maybe speak to my belief in the way that
Yeah,
that system operates.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's right there.
Now let's be honest about some stuff. There are individuals in that seg. There are individuals in prison. There are individuals walking the street who are violent, who have committed violence, who can be a threat to themselves or others. I'm an abolitionist. I don't think that putting people in a cage is going to improve that in any way, right? There are other ways to deal with that, right? Mental health issues, family issues, providing them the dignity that should be accorded to every individual, right? There are other ways to deal with that other than saying, we can't do anything with you, so we're just going to lock you up in a cage and forget about you. Having said that, if they think that I'm a member, if I'm confirmed, right, as a member of a security threat group, and they say, well, if you want to start the process to get out, you have to tell us everything you know about everyone who's involved in that system, everything you know about this crime, that crime, this crime. It could very well be that what they're doing is that they suspect other individuals who are also involved in this. It could be that they want to bring an indictment on someone who they believed was involved in some sort of violence against another individual or a guard. I don't know. Or that's just their procedure. And I think that's the big thing. Prisons are slave to procedure. They have a way of doing things that they think this is a way that maybe worked again 30 years ago. In the 80s, they were locking folks up, right? In the 80s, you could get a shank for a bag of coffee, a serious shank, right? In the 80s, if you committed a murder or something against somebody, you might get 5 years if they decide to try you, right? Well, those were the policies that we used to say these folks are dangerous, so we're going to lock you up now, right? Well, the fact is, in TDCJ now, in 1985, they had like 23, 25 people murdered in TDCJ by other encaged individuals, right? They had 39,000 people locked up there. They got 124,000 people locked up now, and there's maybe 3 murders a year now. Security is much tighter, right? It's almost impossible to get a real weapon, right? Things don't happen like that anymore. But they're still using those same policies that were put into place 30 or 40 years ago, right? So their belief system is still the same. They have not changed. And a lot of that is because the people at the top were guards in the 80s, the 90s, the 70s, right? They worked their way up, and they have yet to update their policies and their approach toward the individuals who are incarcerated. Let's use a little bit of let's use a humanitarian approach. Let's go and see what the issue is, why that person joined a gang, right? Does that person not have a family? Let's find some emotional, personal, societal, community support for this individual. That's not the TDCJ way. Their thinking is still stuck in the 80s.
And I think, and I want to venture into observation that, one, when you look at the prison industrial complex in Texas,
Right.
And okay, when you look at Texas, California, New York, this might be one of your larger plantations, and then you got a large plantation. You have people that are immigrants, children of immigrants, or haven't been nationalized according to America's standard. So you got this large prison population. I would venture to say that, you're using this as more for a control mechanism than for anything else, because the reality is that if you're saying that, and we talked about this off camera, if you're saying that I'm a threat, okay, and we recognize that some people could be threats. That's not even an issue. But if you're saying that I'm a threat and you review me every year, because, they got a modicum of due process in this concept that they put out, admin said. They give you a notice, and they bring you up every year to tell you why you no longer, that they're not going to let you off.
Yeah.
But if the concept is, because this is how it come into existence, the concept is that I'm on admin said being investigated. I've been identified as being a threat. Once you say put me in a security threat group category, then you taking me up. Now you're not taking me up to say that I'm no longer a threat. You taking me up now to say, and it's the control mechanism I'm talking. Now you take me up to say, like, well, you can come off if you divulge information about the intricacies of this group. So therefore, you got complete control over this population because now everybody come in. All you gotta do is say security threat group.
Oh, yeah.
You can put them, you can isolate them, you can lock them down,
Right.
and you can keep them locked down forever. But talk about where the strike stand at, or what's going on with the strike, because I know that they were able to a lot of individuals opted out of it, but the last time I read it was maybe 40 men was holding fast to it and continue to stay steadfast in terms of trying to get some having a hunger strike in order to try to get some attention to the arbitrary and capricious nature of the Texas Department of Correction.
Yeah, it's really difficult to get information that you can rely on. As people who are incarcerated.
Right.
This ain't like some other states who just have 8 or 9 prisons, and really we have prisons scattered all over the state. And of course they shut down the mail, they shut down visits to those folks. So there's anywhere from a few dozen to maybe 100, but who knows, right? I mean, who can anybody?
Right.
Even if there's one, if there's one individual out there saying that we believe that they're worthy of support, and I think that what they have been protesting or go down 2 tracks. One is, as you said, the capricious nature of assignment to ADSEG, and then the sham nature of the review that keeps you back there. And 2 is the fact that TDCJ has historically relied on the definition of security threat group as something that is dangerous inherently in and of itself, and just being a member of that group means that you are somebody who is too dangerous to walk the halls of any prison in general population, and they've been assigned back there. So some of the conditions are, of course, that they're not getting recreation like they're supposed to, that they don't have for people. Most of the people who are watching the show probably know prison and ADSEG, I would think. But in ADSEG you get no contact whatsoever, no human contact with anybody. None whatsoever. Even the guards don't touch you. Nobody touches you. You go out in the yard by yourself. You have an hour yard supposedly every day. Or an hour of recreation. It may not be the yard, but recreation.
Right, exactly. Yard, showers,
right. You get no programming whatsoever. By programming, any sort of education or religious studies or anything that you want to do to occupy your mind, and hopefully, I don't use the word rehabilitation, but I use the word personal transformation of yourself, right? Or trying to achieve some better version of yourself, as we're all trying to do, right? Everybody in existence, hopefully, they're not allowed to get that and to have any sort of personal interaction with anybody. They're trying to say that, hey, that we need that, and there's a ream of studies out there talking about, how personal contact, the denial of personal contact has negative effects on folks. And I kind of hesitate to use that because I know people who've been in ADSEG for a while and came out and seem to be pretty well. I'm not going to say that ADSEG in and of itself is going to destroy you and your spirit and your mind to such a degree, right, that it affects everybody. It affects us all in different ways. We all have a different degree of resilience, right? But the practice in and of itself is inhumane. Treating any individual like that is inhumane, and that's the point that they keep trying to make. So I think those are some of the goals, and they time this to begin on the first day of the legislative session.
Right. Talk about that.
Right, and the legislative session in Texas, we have it every other year, is for 6 months, right? January through June. And there is a legislator named Terry Reza that I'm going to have a conversation with that has filed a couple of bills to amend ADSEG, right? Now, her reasoning is that these individuals are going to get out of prison, and do you want them to be living in your neighborhood if they've been in ADSEG, right? The way it is. I disagree with that reasoning because what it's doing is saying that if you don't change it, those people are inherently dangerous. Instead of saying they could be contributing members to your community if we gave them the program that they need, if we didn't treat them in such a way, if we didn't model these things, right? But, it's hard, that's a policy arena. Sometimes you have to, make alliances with folks. You have to make arguments to get an end, right? I tend to argue on the revolutionary edge of reform, right? Which comes from a moral standpoint and not a transactional standpoint, which she's doing. But it might bring about some change. I don't know. But that's what they're shooting for. And I've seen quite a bit of media attention being given to it. And that's driven by individuals such as you yourself. This program, again, Brittany up in Wisconsin. And I just, and I thank y'all for that.
And in terms of the legislative disposition.
Right.
Because I remember when I was locked up and I was on admin SAG, and when I got on admin SAG, because I knew that case that came of Helms versus Hewitt, I knew that it was a couple other cases that came out that pretty much said that this is the new way of doing things. So I had life. At the time I had a life sentence. I was saying, well, like a life sentence on admin SAG is like death, being on death row, because I ain't gonna never get no movement.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
I started litigating. But what I came across in the process of it, they had a parallel regulation for protective custody, and they said that admin SAG and protective custody would be treated the same in terms of the way they conditions. So we was able to get a lot of things done
Okay.
as a result of that.
Right.
But I'm interested in have anybody thought about this being an Eighth Amendment violation, or in terms of a lot of the arbitrariness that's going on, the fact that you're not allowed no program, the fact that you're not allowed no type of information, no type of contact, no type of information that will allow you to even develop some type of social skills. Because, and maybe you can speak on this here, because I'm of the opinion that everybody in Texas on admin SAG, on supermax, I'm of the opinion that not all of them are serving life sentences.
No.
Or at some point in time, it might be somebody back there that got 10 years and they're going to be released. It might be somebody that they didn't identify as a security threat, being a member of a security threat group, that has a sentence that's going to ultimately allow for them to be released. So does it stand a reason that you would want to try to do something in terms of like putting some information out there, allow these people to develop some type of social skills? And have y'all considered filing some type of litigation against the Texas Department of Correction?
That's a good question. I don't know. I mean, I'm not an attorney, right? Like you, I mean,
Right.
like you, I spent a lot of time in law libraries reading stuff when I was incarcerated. So I don't know. I would assume that individuals in that seg have filed every
Yeah,
under
yeah.
every under every amendment that you can think of, right? They probably taken every approach. But as you and I know, the courts have taken have taken the approach that every individual during the course of their confinement is going to be faced with the possibility of being assigned to that seg, which is what made it an assignment and not a punishment. For those who don't know, solitary confinement used to be that kind of stuff. They'd stick you back there 3 days, a week, 30 days if they were really cruel, but they let you out. Administrative segregation is an assignment. You are assigned to live, 24 hours a day in a cell by yourself. It's an assignment, and the courts have said everyone's going to face that at some point. As long as they set up a meaningful review, all this other stuff, they can do that to you. So, yeah, I mean, again, I'm not an attorney, so I don't know if the Eighth Amendment would be a good way to go, but I'm sure it would be. But I am sure that some folks back there have already tried that, and dude, I mean, Fifth Circuit is not going to let pretty well anything past that. And the Supreme Court we have now is not going to let much past that. They're very much on the side of law and order. I think pretty well the only things that we can rely on are caring, compassionate legislators that will file stuff right. Again, they have gone down from like 10,000 to 31. Movements such as ours that are, of people who are formerly incarcerated who can use their direct experience, right, the lived experience, and talk to, well, you see me now, you say, oh, you're articulate, all this or whatever, so prison can't be that bad. And you try to explain to them about your children and how you can subject them to different experiences, and they're all going to react in different ways. They have different degrees of resilience or whatever. But is that the humane thing that you want to do to them? Do you guide them by punishing them? Do you guide them by rewarding them and molding them and giving them examples of what you should do? So I have faith in our communities and our communities moving forward in that way. I don't know how much time it'll take, and I don't know if the legal arena is a way to do that, because that's so stacked against us, right? Again, we don't have a William Wayne justice around anymore. We don't have people on the Supreme Court saying that there is no that there is no wall, whatever, yeah, right.
occurring between the
Yes, thank you.
Constitution and prison rights.
Between people who
Yeah,
incarcerate people out here, yes.
right,
You
right.
know, yeah,
Thurgood
the old
Marshall.
court, the burger court. Yeah, we don't have that anymore.
Yeah,
We get the
Burger. Yeah,
robbers
Burger.
court.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Hey, but I wanna and I'm gonna close on
All right.
this and then let you have the last word. But I wanna offer to the brothers and sisters and mainly the ones that's on the strike, that's all that seem to think that this is a way, and I'm in agreement if you take the approach that you think. I'm gonna remind them of Bobby Sands, and Bobby Sands was a member of the Irish Republican Army, and the Irish Republican Army was in much like conditions like these. Everybody that was locked up, they said you was if you it was in Ireland and you was Catholic, then you was considered a member of the Irish Republican Army. So they put you in the worst uh, plantation that known human. And Bobby Sands went on a hunger strike and ultimately perished. But in doing so, it changed the way the narrative of the prison. It changed the attitude of the prison population. It changed the attitude of society as they looked at Ireland and the occupation that was taking place. But or you had the last word. What do you want? What do you want our listeners to know and to take away from this conversation we're having today? And more importantly, where can they contact you at, or how can they get involved?
Yeah, thank you. I would like our listeners to walk away with the idea as that judging an individual and judging individuals by things that they may have committed in the past or things that they did commit in the past doesn't mean, or judging them by those things or denying everybody's capacity to use insight into themselves and to the system that has enslaved them and brutalized them, and find some sort of forgiveness and try to transform themselves into somebody different, as we all do. We all go through phases. And that to continue to treat people, every individual matters. Not just the individual in AdSeg who's poetic, who's good looking, who maybe isn't back there for a heinous crime, but the ones that are back there for some really ugly shit. Every individual, no human is disposable. And for us to continue in that fashion is a reflection on the ugliest part of ourselves, right? It's not AdSeg itself that molds people into that way. It's us that rely on that system because of individuals that we fear or can't somehow control. And if we can get away from that idea and try to see individuals as a human that they are, as a beautiful human that they are, we won't resort to that sort of stuff. And that there are people such as yourself, such as these organizations that you are the face of people who have been there. And you show the dignity and compassion and understanding towards people that I think if we turn to you for guidance or whatever, and I think this would be a better place. It's a little wordy, man. Sorry.
Hey, but well put. And how can we get in touch with
Oh,
you?
yeah. My email is Renaud, JRENAUD, at latinojustice.org.
Okay.
If y'all want to contact and maybe see what we're doing or have other conversations like this, they don't always have to be on TV, man. They could be at a coffee shop in DC or at at a deli in New York or in Austin. We come to Austin, man. But
Yeah,
holler at
most definitely. All right, there you have it, the real news about Texas prison and the prison strike. More importantly, what's behind it. This is a control issue on the part of the Texas Department of Correction, but it should be a humane issue on the part of society. You can't treat people like animals and expect them to come out
No.
and be human. And we're asking that all our viewers and all our listeners, look into this and develop some type of conscience about what you think should take place in this situation. Jorge, thank you very much for
Thank you. It's been an honor, man.
giving us this opportunity and this insight. We look forward to working with you at some
Anytime.
point in time.
Anytime.
And we remind our listeners to continue to support Rattling the Bars and the Real News. It's because of the Real News that you get information like this. You're not gonna get this type of information. You're not gonna get an Jorge on main media talking about the conditions that's going on in prison without him having to endorse some commercial. We're a non-profit. We're not commercial. We bring you. We're actually what we say we are. We are actually the Real News. And thank you very much.